Okay, this is going to be kind of a different video. So I've been thinking a lot about what a Scratchbuilt model is. And looking online, I have noticed that there seems to be a lot of confusion about that. Those of you watching this video, of those few watching, you're going to probably fall into one of three groups. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You have no clue what I'm talking about, or you think you know what I'm talking about, but you're actually mistaken. I'm gonna try to make an attempt to kind of clarify some things about what a Scratchbuilt model is, what is kit bashing, what is scratch bashing, what is modeling for, let's call it, what is modifying, customizing, and then why I believe, and I'll back this up, that 3D printed models are not scratch built in any way, shape, or form. So I guess probably the easiest way to do this is just jump right in, and first I'll kind of skim through some photos of some models I found online. And the question here is, are they scratch built? And I'm just going to give a simple yes or no. And then we'll kind of go back and review these in a little bit. And I'll kind of explain myself as far as why I said yes or why I said no. So this is a no. Yes. No. Yes. Yes. No. Nope. 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 We'll go back to that one. But yeah, it is. Yeah. Yep. No. No, believe it or not. Yep. Nope. Nope. Yes. Kind of. What was this one again? No. No. Nope. 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 Yes. Yes, believe it or not, this is scratch built. And I think that kind of covers everybody. Let me see here. Let me go back to this size it was supposed to be. Yes, 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 no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, actually, scratch built. Yes, 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 absolutely, yes, yep, yep, nope, yes, of course, yes. So, okay, let's go back. Why is this scratch built? So let's understand what scratch building is. If I say I'm going to make you a cake from scratch, what does that mean to you? What that means is, and some people can take this to an extreme, is I took all of the base ingredients that you need to make a cake, and I combined them in the right quantities, assembled them, and baked them to make that cake. I didn't get that cake from a box of pre-mixed cake mix. I didn't go buy that cake at a store already made and then put icing on it, or have someone decorate it with a name or some other type of decoration. I didn't take pre-made layers of cake, assemble them with icing. You see where I'm going with this. And the other extreme for that is, not only did I take the flour, the eggs, and the milk, but I also milked the cow, I raised those chickens, and I ground that wheat to make the flour. That's probably as pure scratch built or made item as you'll get. So from the standpoint of, or if we go and take that same analogy and we apply it to model building, what it basically is you took very base raw elements, like in this case some sheets of styrene, looks like some cardboard. This one I'm not so sure, could have been part of another model, but the majority of it appears to be assembled. So you've got scratch building, which is more along the lines of the thing on the right. And probably the thing on the left is a little more on the Kitbashed side. I would say it falls into that sort of hybrid called scratch bashing. And what scratch bashing is, and there's a big difference between, I think, kit bashing and scratch bashing. So if you're kit bashing something, if you're kit bashing something, you're taking elements from an existing model and reassembling it with elements from another existing model. And it could be at a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 20 if you wanted to be like really special about it. But it's still not scratch building. You're just taking existing parts and repurposing them on another model to serve the same purpose that they did on the first model. Okay, so you're taking tank treads from a tank and you're putting them on another tank and putting a different turret on it. That's kit bashing. Now, if you said, I'm taking pieces of those tank treads and I'm going to utilize them as something other than what they were designed for, that's more scratch bashing. Let me see if I can find you an example. So, and I think that's about as clear as you can say it. You are taking something that was originally something else, soda straws, beads, and even this, I would go as far as to say this is less kit bashing or rather less scratch bashing and almost completely scratch built, because all they're really taking is some pretty base elements of some tubes, little trinkets, and then reassembling them into something that they absolutely were not before. Kit bashing is more like, this is scratch built. This is pretty scratch built. And this is where I'd say this is more like scratch bashing. And I'll tell you why, because, they didn't take the plastic and vacuum form it. And hey, let me just say one thing, and I probably should have said this at the beginning. I'm going to try to explain this as well as I can without sounding like some kind of pedantic art school nerd or snob. I'm not doing that. I'm not trying to upset anybody. I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes. I just want to clarify what I think. This is my opinion, but I think it's generally understood to be correct by most people who have been building models for 10 or 20 years. There's distinct differences, and I think it's important to understand those differences so that you don't end up making mistakes in online articles and saying things like, this is scratch built. This isn't scratch built. You took a little chunk of putty and you put it over somebody's head and made a hood. That's called a modification. Scratch built. Almost entirely scratch built. I mean, you can probably argue scratch bashed. You're taking elements from other items and assembling them, but you're not taking elements that were originally designed for that purpose. If I said this gun or rocket launcher was a gun or rocket launcher that I took from another vehicle and I put it on this thing, that's not scratch building. If you took chunks of an old, mechanical pen and some spoons and chunks of a spray bottle and maybe little bits from a pen and some toothpaste, and that's about as close to a pure scratch build as you can get. This is kit bashing, not scratch build. Kit bashing. Took a helicopter front end, some rockets. Now, it could be referred to as kit bashing with elements that were scratch built, but ultimately it's a kit bash. I don't think anybody will argue that. This is pretty scratch built. Completely scratch built. Kitbashed. Didn't really make any changes, just kind of like took little pieces from other vehicles and other parts from it's even in the same model range. Kitbashed. I mean, modified. Here's where I have another problem with some of these I see is, oh, I custom built these, or I scratch built these, or did you though? I mean, if you're taking pieces from models that were already made to be, let's say, have hand swaps, head swaps, leg swaps, shoulder swaps, did you really even kit bash, or did you just build a model from an existing kit, but you added different elements to it? Yeah, I don't know. All right, 3D printing. Now, why is 3D printing not the same as, say, someone who did, I don't know, this? He's sculpting something completely from scratch, a piece of clay and some wire. He's using a little wooden tool. He's literally carving this out of nothing. Well, I know you can make that argument in 3D printing. You're an artist. It takes a relatively good amount of artistic skill to 3D model this figure. But what are you really doing? I mean, you didn't make it from hand. I mean, it isn't made from a material that you worked with your own hands. It's not handcrafted. That's where scratch building comes from. That's where sculpting, true sculpting, comes from. This is more like rapid prototyping. CAD design, computer aided design. You made some decisions in the way this was going to look, but you were aided by the computer to make it. You didn't have to worry about the temperature, the consistency, the workability of the material that you had. You didn't have to worry about, I made a mistake and now I've ruined it. Or it was somehow damaged in the curing process. Or, you decided to make a change last minute and it made an alteration that you can't go back on. When you're doing this stuff on a computer, you can make as many changes as you want infinitely. I can make a completely reversed version of this instantly. With the tree stump on the left and the rocks and the vines on his arms instead of his legs, with different eyes, multiple eyes. I can stretch his head out really huge. These aren't things that you need to worry about on a computer. You would have an infinitely more difficult time doing this in real life. And then there's the reproducibility of it. We're taking a 3D object that's been converted into a file that now anyone can take and print out to make exactly the same thing. And yeah, you can argue, all right, well, what about people who build original models who then take those models and make copies of them? Well, they hand sculpted the master. And the process of reproducing them is still a very tedious process. They're not just being 3D printed from a file. You still have to create the mold. You have to make decisions about how that mold is cut, how that original was designed, and how best to reproduce it, and with what material you want to reproduce it. Again, with different types of mixes. You have to worry about undercuts. There's a number of different things. Shrinkage. A lot of different elements go into that. But with a 3D model, you have none of that. I'm not knocking the artistry of it. There's definitely skill behind making something like this. I'm just saying it's not scratch built. It's not made from scratch. It's not a real live 3D model that was made by hand. It was a computer-aided sculpture that, I mean, if you saw CAD designs 10 or even 15 years ago, nothing could even compare. But you know, nowadays, you can make virtually anything. It's remarkable. It's a fantastic thing, but not scratch built, not handmade. You added a beard, not scratch built, barely even modified, and definitely like Kitbashed. you just customized it. I can't remember what this one was. I think this was just a number of different kits kind of pieced together or cleaned up. I can't remember if this one was scratch built. I think it was. And I know what you're going to say. Well, there's little bits of plastic that are from the model, but yeah, look at it. The majority. Here's where you have to get a little nitpicky about it. You almost have to. You have to consider almost in percentages. Was the majority of this thing sculpted? I would say that this would count as maybe scratch bashing a little bit. It has sculptural elements. It has scratch-made elements, with, you know, combined with the frame of something that existed. But for the most part, yeah, it's scratch built. 3D model. Why did I say this one wasn't scratch built? Because this is actually a 3D model printed in resin. So yeah, pretty amazing what you can do. But yeah, again, not hand sculpted, 3D model. Scratch built, obviously, just chunks of plastic. Now, yeah, okay, they borrowed some little backpacks from some 1/35th scale soldiers, so what? Yeah, they took a couple of little decorative elements and added it, but 99.9% of this is completely made from pieces of styrene and what looks to be chunks of cardboard even, maybe, and some green stuff. All right, so this is the one that kind of irritated me. I saw an article, and I think there was even a video, and in the article it said this was a Kitbashed. So I'll explain what this is. This is a I think it was a Castellan Games Workshop robot, and it has ball joints in it to allow it to be posable. But the original had little square nibs on the ball joints that kept it from rotating 360 degrees. So all they did is they cut these little square nibs out that were keeping it from rotating all the way around, and they reassembled it. That is not that is just modifying something. I mean, that's like clipping your fingernails. This isn't a custom mod. It's not anyway, you understand what I'm saying. All right, this one's a Kitbashed 100%. It's more like, it's almost like a scratch bash. There's just so many elements to this. I mean, it's a Kitbashed. It's not really scratch built. I'd say it's about 90% Kitbashed with a couple of little things added on. All right, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on here, but basically what this amounts to is a plastic model with some chunks of green stuff wrapped across it, just like with the hoods, only they added a tabard. Not scratch built, not even Kitbashed. It's just modified. They changed the pose. Again, it's just modified. It's not a custom mecha. It's not, you know, unless they physically, even if they physically sculpted a lot of these panels. I mean, they basically just took an existing mech and rebuilt it with, you know, new parts. 3D printed, 3D printed, 3D printed. Again, sculptural elements, 90% of it probably, with a couple little bits of plastic for armor. But unlike the other Space Marine, all of this looks like it was very heavily modified. I'd say a heavily modified miniature, more than scratch-built miniature. You know, looks like most of the torso was probably made by hand, and some of the feet and maybe some other stuff. But otherwise, they built it off an existing model. Scratch-built. Scratch-bashed, you could say. Build bottles. So a mix. So yeah, I mean, it's a very subtle thing. Kitbashed. Ultimately, you know, I think it's important to understand some of these differences. You don't have to be super nitpicky about it, but I think it's important for things like trying to explain to someone what you did and what you didn't do, and just going out of your way and saying, hey, I designed this. Well, in this case, this person, yeah, they designed this. This is like a Kitbashed, but it's a really well done one. I think you take credit away from the original designers who created these shapes, who spent the time engineering all of the different elements of a particular item. When you are essentially claiming them as your own. So saying this is scratch-built, that would be a travesty. It's just a Kitbashed. You just took a bunch of existing elements and pieced them together. Now, if this were, say, originally a bottle top, and this was like originally a pill bottle, and you know, they sourced this from a fork, and these were wire tubes, and not 100% scratch built, but it's, I would say, yeah, it's virtually almost 90% scratch built, even if you source the parts, because you're taking parts that normally didn't exist as the feature you're reinventing them as. Anything that you take, whether it's something like this, or this, I mean, if I took this and I said this is going to be a robot body, no one's going to argue with me and say, nope, that's a USB charger. You're just kit bashing a USB charger. Well, am I though? I mean, I'm taking this shape, you know, let's give credit where credit's due. Yeah, they made a really awesome shape, but hey man, I turned this into a robot. Now, if I just drew a smiley face on that and then glued these two little prongs to a base, and said that was my custom built robot, yeah, you'd probably laugh at me. But you know, in a way, that's kind of repurposing it as a scratch bash, right? A really poor one. But you know, if I went to the trouble of actually adding rivets or arms or a lot of other features and details, completely painted it up, and you couldn't even recognize it as what it was originally built to be, then yeah, let's say that's scratch built. Why not? So I don't want to drag this on too long. I think I kind of made my point. I just wanted to put it out there and maybe give some more inexperienced modelers or people who haven't been doing this long kind of a hopefully useful or helpful instructive video that maybe gives them a little bit more information that is maybe not always found out there. So anyway, thanks. I hope you guys weren't offended if I used your models or you saw something that you recognize other people have built. I don't have anything bad to say about any of them. I just wanted to clarify what I felt needed to be clarified. Thanks very much. Like and subscribe. See you later.